it's like visiting riches. All you gotta
What's up, everybody? So it's official. Killing Joke is now out for sale at all of the normal places that you would buy stuff at, and it's also on the internet for all of the normal people who don't buy stuff. So now that it's out, let's talk about it. So I'm going to break this review down into 3 parts. It's going to be the good, the bad, and then the ugly, and everything I saw when I watched this film last night. I did go see it in the theater, so I'm going to tell you everything that I saw from last night. Let's start with the good. One of the first big good things that I picked up while watching this movie was how crisp and clean the animation was. And I like that this newer animation still holds a lot of the nostalgia and the dark elements that we see with the original animated series when we look at Gotham, but it builds on that by adding a different type of animation style to it. So the animation style that you see within The Killing Joke is very similar to all the latest DC projects, including Bad Blood and even Justice League War. It's very similar to that, but still more nostalgic in the sense of Batman has a very different costume. The pointy ears are pretty funny after you watch it for a while. The Batgirl costume's a little bit further back. It's different than the style we've become used to from the latest DC movies, but it is a nice way to pay homage to the actual graphic novel that this movie is based off. The next good element that I'd like to talk about when it comes to The Killing Joke is actually going to be the shot-for-shot comparison compared to the actual Killing Joke. If you've ever read The Killing Joke, you know that there are a lot of very specific and iconic scenes. I believe that The Killing Joke actually does produce on this. I think that it brings all those scenes to life in a way that any real fan that's read this book will be able to not only look at it and enjoy, but still at the same time feel as if they're almost watching the live-action animated adaptation of the graphic novel, which is what's lacking in a lot of productions made by studios these days. So if you look at the film on paper, you know that it's going to be a very gritty film, but to bring that to life and then to give it a rated R rating, that's something that you wouldn't really see normally done. And I like the fact that DC took the time to actually take the risk, make it rated R, and then push it forward. First on the list for me was the fact that the movie felt short. Even after the added scenes that if you read the book and then you watch the movie, you'll see which scenes were added, that it still feels short. And I know that it's a really short book, but if you're going to add scenes, add enough so that the movie is now extended and feels long. Okay, so one of the next big bads that I had on the list was that the movie overall felt like it wasn't even a Batman movie. I have to mark it as a bad because if you're going to be adding content to the story, we'll add some background Batman content. It's something that's kind of glossed over in the actual book, so you had the perfect opportunity to really touch on that. I think that it was an opportunity missed, and it was a really big one. Next on my list of things that were bad about Batman, I would have to argue that the lack of inclusion of Robins is a bad thing. There's a scene in the movie where you clearly see that Robins do exist, and that he has trained other people outside of Barbara. So at that point, I would like at least one of them mentioned by name. You're going to tell me that there's a Batgirl. There needs to either be a Nightwing, a Jason Todd, or a Tim Drake running around. Even if he, at the end of the film, started the process of finding a new Robin, or even if at the end of the film, Tim walked in on him at the Batcave. And I felt like missing out that opportunity to even mention a Robin, especially Nightwing, and with his relationship with Barbara, that felt like a huge missed opportunity to me. So a lot of the bads are just really missed opportunities that I wondered, why didn't you take the chance? Okay, and the last real big bad that I want to talk about within The Killing Joke was the inclusion of Paris French. So Paris French is a villain that we come to find out about in the first maybe 2 minutes of the film. He actually turns out to be a really good villain. I enjoyed watching him be a villain. And I got so excited about the idea of him having something to do with The Killing Joke overall that I really sat in my seat hoping to see more Paris French. So I was kind of upset there because the way that the movie is shown and the way that the story is structured, it feels as if Paris is going to end up being this huge character that's going to change or in some way challenge what's kind of occurring within the actual film story. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really happen. It's more or less just he's there. And he's just a case that Batman's solving at the time period. And I think that was also a huge opportunity missed because he actually sounds like he's a great character. And I would love to see more movies with him or even a whole side story about one of the Robins taking him down, because he seems like he would actually be a challenge to a lot of people who think that just because they're a crime fighter that they're just better than everyone else. Okay, so let's get into some of the uglier aspects of this film that really need to be talked about. So one of the first big ugly moments, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen the film, go ahead and just click over this, maybe even stop watching, is the situation between Bruce Wayne and Barbara Gordon. The relationship change that you added into the film, yeah, it's something that a lot of us comic book fans have always thought about and wondered why it never happened, but at the same time, you missed an opportunity to clearly introduce Dick Grayson or show the fragmented reality that is Batman's life, because you only wanted to focus on this little itty bitty thing that happens at the very beginning that actually doesn't have anything to do with what happens later. If you took the first 20 minutes out, including Batman and Batgirl, and you played it from the moment Batman goes to Arkham finding out about Joker to the end of the film, I wouldn't have cared, because that's how unimportant the Batgirl aspect was. But I would argue that this is a A-, B+ type movie with a lot of good homage to the actual novel and the mythos that is Joker and Batman. Outside of that, I mean, it's really more or less just enjoyable for people who've read The Killing Joke. New fans might find it a little hard to watch, because I think that this was a great step in the right direction. I just hope that they can use this to build more comic book adaptation movies that are actually exact, direct panel to screen adaptions of what's seen in the books. If they could do that, I think DC will have the strongest animation department in the sense of comic book movie adaptions. I really would hope that they push that forward, because there's a lot of potential there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure that you subscribe. Check out my page to see any of the other videos. Maybe some of them you might want to watch. I don't really know. Depends on what you're into. I kind of have a little bit of everything on my page. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is BZAR.